Welcome to another episode of Leadership Talks by Advertising Vietnam and Precious Communications. My name is Lars Friedrich, I'm your host, and today we are talking about the evolution of consumer behavior, marketing trends to stay ahead. And we're very excited to have a special guest today with us. That's Kun Tan, he's the Vice President of CP Group here in Vietnam. Welcome.
สวัสดีครับ Thanyachat Auttanukune. Glad to be here, Lars. Thank you.
Good. So before we dive in, a lot of people know CP Group for many things. Maybe you can share as a short introduction about what's your role in the business here in Vietnam.
Right. The group is actually in the business of from agro industry. So we're doing from animal feed, farming, food production, and also the related things. My role specifically is about new businesses. So anything that help adds value to what we are doing. And of course, stick to our principle of three benefit, which is in any country, in any business we do make sure that the country benefit from it, the consumer and the market benefit from it, then the company also makes money. It's hard, but that's what we do.
Today's topic is about consumer trends.
Right.
So you are kind of on the B2B side on the production and on the consumer side directly. What are the key trends you're seeing here in the market?
Right. One of the landscape first, the background. Unlike most of the Southeast Asia countries where they has been open forever and then things start coming in layer by layers, right? Technology trends. In Vietnam, we only open up fully recently, 1985, 1986. So the time span is actually very shorter. And then there's a lot of skip happening. So here we don't have landlines everywhere. What we have is, next thing we know is a really mobile phone and then 3G, 4G, or that's the landscape. Then as a matter of fact, with all these forces that supposed to take decades to come, and it come all at once in a very much shorter time. So we see 4 points. Collectively, we use this in our team. First, consumer is much more me-focused. It's never before they have this many identity about themselves. And they have a lot more in their life. You walk into their room, they have more things. They have more money to spend, they have more choices. Unlike the earlier generations. So more create a lot of confusion, right? At the same time, we overload consumer as well. As a brand, as a entertainment, all kind of media. So they get bored. Anything is more of the same unless you know how to present yourself differently in a meaningful way. And they get worried because now Vietnam is more connected than ever, anywhere. Things happen in South Africa, we know. Things happen in Canada, we know. Things happen in Brazil, we know. We watch World Cup. So that comes with also worries. When bad things happen, we also know and we worry about how fast things go and how it's connected. So these are broadly how things come together. More of a me, more of the things, people get bored and people get worried.
Me, more, bored, worried. So as a brand, growing a business, how do you apply this framework to connect and stay relevant to your customers?
Right. So to be able to do that, what we try to figure out, wouldn't say it's perfect, is that we look at the forward third understanding. So you need to understand consumer in a forward fashion. That you can't use yesterday understanding and say consumer will stay static. It doesn't happen. Nothing stays static. Everything changes all the time. So what we do is forward third understanding, which is, right, in the near future, in the foreseeable future, how likely things would change? And then you bridge 2-3 things together. What would consumer preference be like? For example, last time, health concern. Right, now health concern with environmental concern. This has to come together. The second part is your own offering. What are you good at? What do you really add value to consumer? And the last part is how do you execute it? Then you forward thinking on how this thing comes together. And they say, yes, that's your orientation. And then the rest unfold in terms of what happened first.
So with these changes in the landscape, how do you apply to that? The change in behavior, change in technology, you touched on that. Can you give a few concrete examples that also the audience out there can take learnings from? Right.
So how do we respond to that? How do we make good use of it? Say, for example, e-commerce, right? We know the platform is there. The platform itself won't change. So we have the firm part where we know these are the process. You want to work with Shopee, step 1, 2, 3. You want to work with TikTok, step 1, 2, 3. You want to work with different platforms, like 1, 2, 3. Those are the firm part, where you need to make sure you have your operational excellence. This thing doesn't change. It's about discipline and efficiency. At the same time, the part that changed is the touch, the final touch, where you goes into them, where you interact. Say how you talk, how you present yourself, what color, what celebrity, what cause you want to fight for, what cause you want to stand for. This is how you change over the time. It's the same product, but how you create new connections.
So do you see in the Vietnam market some general trends that the causes changed, or generally causes matter more or less?
Right. So environmental concern is becoming bigger and bigger. Consumers start looking at the packaging more, which I like. When we go observe shoppers on the any market, open market, wet market, supermarket, we see more that people care for how it comes. We see on the forum when they open up for people to have Q&A or web board, different places where people start asking questions about this. So this is first one. The second thing is that people require more and more transparency. How do you make this? How do you claim this? Where does this come from? Are you sure that this is right? What do you mean by you are the best? So the people demand more transparency, which is the right thing to do and which we should respect that. In fact, we should be forward and say that as a brand, we put this forward and say this is how things come. You should be able to trace our product, how we make it from the start.
Nothing is done in isolation. Even in your company, you work with farmers, you have many stakeholders. How do you navigate this landscape where the consumer wants that, and some parts of the chain say, why do we have to change?
We always wish for the best thing in the world, but it's not always happening. So what we have to be very clear and firm is one is our principle. Where do we stand for? Right? In this case, we work in agro industry. It's related to livelihood of people who are farmers, traders related to it, and also consumer who eats it. So our principle is definitely, if we can't feed it to our own family every day in, day out, we shouldn't do that. It's not about doing what is easy, but rather do what's right. It is hard, a lot of tough choice. Yet we have help. We have global network that we can leverage different kind of learning from. We have our friends from the same group operate in different countries, Europe, in Africa, in different parts of Asia, or even in North America. Then we can learn from each other. That's one. The second thing that we get a lot of help is being open to technology. Technology is something that shifts you. In the past, we can't fly. The first time we can fly, weather must be perfect. Now, rain, storm, whatever, we can fly. So technology would help, and then our openness to adopt new technology would allow us to sort of find a new balance between the different stakeholders.
Quick question, because you were touching on that. So you wouldn't do anything you wouldn't feed to your own family. Is your family already push back? Dad, is it allowed to eat a different brand at home every now and then?
Well, may the best brand win. And so far, we of course encourage a good, healthy competition because it's demand us to also bring the best so that we don't just sit on the laurel and say, we are good, we are perfect. No, that's not the case. That's never the case. Today you're good. Let's see how you get it better next time.
So the competition, you said consumers today have way more choices, right? So traditionally, maybe they use these products, but now you have import from other markets. You have other brands that are entering the market. How do you combine the issue of staying true to why people bought you in the past, not you, but your products, and how do you at the same time branch out and attract new customers without losing the core?
So balancing between stay true to your core and also handling newness that come out, choices, variety of the plethora of options that has been grown over the time. Right. Fundamentally, it's a matter of corporate culture, actually. Because certain culture would like to stay try and true. That's understandable. That's fine in that context. In our corporate culture, we are quite entrepreneurial. So what we do is we explore. We do this work, good. It can stay there. At the same time, let's see how it works well. So bosses and also leadership in our organization would encourage our staff that, hey, do you want to try something new? Let's try. Let's see how it goes.
And if I'm not mistaken, you're an example of that, right?
Great. So myself, I co-found a few businesses here. So I'm not first homegrown with the company for super long. But at the same time, our leadership saw that I could add new value. So why not bring him in, let him add to the mix. And yes, what I'm working day in, day out is also a sort of new business, new kind of working relationship that we build. In the past few years, we have new relationship with different new retailers, exclusive product, co-development. How do we link back to work each other better starting from the back end? That's how we try new things. So it's not just about product, but also the way we work as well.
So how do you make sure that the customer doesn't get bored?
Right. So bored is a symptom, right? It came from more of the same. And monkey see, monkey do most of the time. People see, hey, this works, they just copy it. Not a bad thing. That's how we learn language as well. Yet, if we be more careful and discerning, what we do is, how do we want to curate the experience? What should it be like? So when you visit a museum, there is always curator who say, oh, you see this first, and you see this second. This is how we explain how things come together. That's the job of curator. Brand is also a curator. What kind of experience do you want to give to your consumer? So when you see some good work from some other brand, that's great. Inspiration, good reference, don't copy. It's a bad thing because you don't know where they come from. And you don't also know where they copy from as well. So we're supposed to become a curator in that sense.
Can you share examples of when you got it really right and when you didn't?
Right. Okay. Lucky I get it really right here last year. Last year we launched a campaign called Như các mẹ yêu thương, which is love like a mom. What we got it right is it's a blend of what is our core, which is in Vietnam the family value is super strong. It's a fundamental bedrock of a lot of things, which is admirable. So we build on that, and then we say that look, everybody can love like a mom. So in the story that we tell is that when mom got caught up in a lot of things, dad can also step in and help. That's what we portray, and it resonates very well with our audience, with our participants, where they comment, when they respond, hey, look, this is actually good things that you portray. That actually is not just mom that have to take care of family. Anybody can love like a mom. And then of course we play roles, saying because it's about cooking, so it's our product that makes it easier, make it tastier, make it more ready, and you can be free because either you or me go to wet market, we struggle, but because of what we provide, you have a peace of mind moving forward, cooking on that. That is when I get it very right. When I don't get it very right, is we experiment with a few restaurants. In the past, before CP, I thought I have a good idea. I thought it worked somewhere else. I launched it. It didn't work. So in Vietnam, so what happened is that we just folded. I co-found one coffee chain, right? There were cases as well where we thought that we have great location right opposite Starbucks, right opposite another local big brand. We think we're a newcomer. We want to be awesome. We want to be brave. I was wrong. My partner was wrong. So after dragging it, losing money for a year or two, we finally having to give up because it doesn't match with reality. So you can start from consumer. You can start from your end. At the end of the day, reality check.
The consumer is always right. Painfully, but it's true, right?
It's true.
So how do you make sure that you stay ahead of the curve, right? Because you said, me more bored, worried. How do you overcome the worried part?
Right. This is going to be oxymoron now because the two concepts is like complete opposite. So first part is you need discipline to say that, hey, look, we have to always stay ahead. There is always better way to do things. We have to have the discipline that we push ourselves towards that direction. On the other hand, we need to be imaginative because we want improvement as a result. We wanted to avoid getting tangled with me more ball worried. We have to be more imaginative in terms of what is possible, what's next. And a lot of times, if it's your nature, great. If it's not, you can learn from others. Visit art museum, read novels, go into different industry, read a magazine you never learn about. Sometimes I read pet magazine. Just to what are out there new, in order to maybe it helps.
Good. Let's look a bit on trends upcoming. What do you see that will change really massively consumer behavior? And one particular topic I want your insights on is how much is sustainability a topic from outside, from the big MNCs versus what consumers really care about?
First, the nature of the trend was impossible for me to predict the trend, of course, but what we could see is the nature of a trend. The nature of a trend that would be becoming more confusing because there's so much more data, so much more news out there. The problem is we cannot discern the quality of the news, what to believe anymore. So it will be very confusing. At the same time, it goes very fast. because globally we have more resources to pursue different kind of interests. So people, some work on AI, then you see advancement on AI literally every day on the news or any other areas. So it will be confusing. It will also be fast. So we have to stay calm. On the consumer front, what would happen is that because it's much, much more convenient to do things, and it's fast and it's confusing what to choose. So as a brand, as a business, you need to hold yourself more accountable in making sure you provide what is right. Because a lot of time they would rely on you since you're an expert. So you have to have that integrity that, look, you present what is really in their best interest first. Right? Then that also having to do with the sustainability and the global trend of the ESG and all that. The problem is people talk a lot, but that is sort of far away and don't feel like touching like how much do each of us recycle every day. And give for example, one thing that we did is that as a group, CP Vietnam has been growing trees. So far we've grown million something this year, and then this year, next year we have a plan to go to 1.5 million. And in the process of doing, we don't just tell people that we grow tree, we invite them. 3-4 times a year, we will have different kind of trip and say, hey, folks, who would like to join us? We go to this area, we grow tree. Let's come together. Then they experience it. Then they take part in it. And that is not only just making sure that consumers understand what we are doing. At the same time, it gives them and us opportunity to work together to create something. That is much more meaningful than just put it on the advertising and say, we do this.
Talking about consumers and involving them. So that kind of overlap between consumers getting involved and marketing play is a little bit like that influencer. Ideally, your influencers that you engage as a brand really love your product and they're consumers. Sometimes they're just hired guns. How do you deal with influencers from two perspectives? Number one, that they are the right choice and not just the one with a big following. And second, how to let go, because the best stories are the ones that are authentic and not driven by a marketing script.
And this is just a matter of fact. Marketing have bosses to answer to, so they are systematically constrained by that. That's understandable, which is why a lot of time, amazingly great story came from outside. You don't own your brand anymore long back since the invention of internet, because it's two ways now. People talk about Web3 and all that, but behavior happened long back that people wanted to take part, wanted to share what they think. So two things, which is how do we deal with making sure we get the right ones to influence for our product brands, and also at the same time, how do we sort of let this happen? First thing first is what is our orientation, right? If we go classical, we will look for a number of followers, number of interaction, all kind of metrics, yeah. But those are numbers that lack nuances of how actually people really feels about it. Not to mention that there are bots to help boost all those numbers as well. Hence, we shouldn't use old paradigm in terms of looking at what we should use is what is the alignment between what the person or the influencer is great at and exactly what is our brand and consumer wants. So what is the alignment? That's supposed to come first. That's supposed to be first metric. Numbers would come. You can have a mixture of them. That's fine. But the alignment is more important. The moment you have the alignment, it makes it easier for the second aspect as well, which is how to let go. Because the person knows what the person is stand for. And because we encourage him or her to continue to be him or herself. Like we have traveling influencer. Of course, we are not going to ask him to go talk about bringing our product and cook it in the middle of nowhere. That is not true. Right? But because of the great alignment that comes together, we set the stage and encourage the person that, look, this is a brand. This is what you do. Go ahead. As long as you don't promote wrong thing, as long as you don't make it too extreme, sure, be my guest. And one of the things that we even cascade down to consumer is that last year when we launched the campaign, Love Like a Mom, beyond the story that we show that step in and cook for the family, we also encourage people that, look, in the show, we have a dish called Gang Mai, which is the egg soup. What would you cook it differently for your family? Please, go ahead. This is how we set the stage. And then people submit. We expect only like 100 or 2, but then we end up having like 400 or 500 within the same period of time. Which shows that actually, if you are open-minded, if you set the stage properly, and if you engage them correctly, people will participate, and it will be beautiful.
So one thing that I saw as a red thread through our discussion today was that stay true to what your brand stands for, the core. at the same time, you have to adjust to trends. So that sounds, is it about taking more risk or less risk as a marketer?
It depends. Right. You see, there's so many Spider-Man across the years. There's so many Batman across the years. Each has their own different interpretation. At the core, it's the same. Spider-Man, teenage, superpower, don't know what to do with it, having to balance life. Batman, his parent died, propel him to do fighting crime. That's the same thing. So your core can have different interpretation. That's fine. But at the very core, if you have a good one, it will be very, very close to human truth, to people truth, to product truth. There's a great alignment in it. Everybody loves their family. Good. If your core is about family, good. Roll around with it. Different interpretation. This day, we see also global brands have different interpretation of how family looks like. In some countries, it's LGBT family. In some other more conservative family, it's still classical family, moms, dad, kids. That's fine. It's the same core, different interpretation. So the risk that you would take is, would you stay true to your core, and would you allow the interpretation to go beyond what you are comfortable with, what you grow up with?
Well, that's an interesting point, right? Because we have brands that are so strong already in their base that any movement to the left, to the right, up or down might annoy part of the core. So as a marketer and growing the business, how do you balance between keeping the customers you have and growing new segments without losing the ones you already have in the loyalty base?
This is how we should see it. Growth is actually an outcome of a lot of things. So if you put growth as a starting point, then you stress yourself in you want to make use of what you have. Rather, if you see growth as an outcome, then you will see that naturally what is optimum to be done. Meaning, can you move your base a bit, or might as well you come up with something new. So the point being, don't put growth as a pull, but rather growth as an outcome, and focus on, in fact, what can you do optimum that actually serve your consumer and market better. Then you get growth as it comes together with it. Do the right thing.
Do the right thing. So if you would give any advice out there to people that are just joining the marketing field, what would you tell them about how to really get to the situation where they say, when can they say no to their bosses because they realize it's not true to the core of the brand?
Lucky that bosses there is very entrepreneurial. So when they say no, they ask me why. But not in every situation you can do that. So you're supposed to practice a little bit. 3 things. First thing first is, in marketing, you're supposed to work the hardest as a junior. You're supposed to know your consumer the best. You're supposed to know market the best. You're supposed to be able to recite the number or key facts like on the back of your head. So the moment you establish yourself as an authority in that sense, in that field, in that level, you wouldn't say what you think, but rather you say you know this for the fact, and you can back that. That increases your credibility. The second part is sort of absorb more from others, learn from everyone, from everything. Of course, you choose from the right sources that you learn from, but don't stop learning. Education doesn't end in university. There are great many examples in the world. You go to different website reference ads of the world, look at it, explore it. That also gives you varieties of toolbox to do. And last but not least, marketing itself is also is one of the tools in business toolbox. So you are not the ultimate answer. A lot of time, business problem can be solved by finance. It can be solved by sales, can be solved by operation. So it's also your job to see how you understand different department inside and align them or convince them that together, this is how we are marketing the market.
Have your allies. I know we had a conversation about where you were citing like the classic authors where you take reference for. So it doesn't have to be just marketing or business books.
No.
Okay.
Anything.
Could be War and Peace or The Art of War or Anakat.
Karina, every happy family are alive. Every unhappy family are unhappy in their own way. So yes. So when and then don't with that, don't learn just from the success case. Success case is very easy to learn because they can write anything, right? They win already. So learn from mistake, learn from failure. you don't have to go through that yourself, but you can learn from it, what went wrong, not so that you can sort of avoid it, or if you were to go to the same path, at least you're aware of it.
Excellent. So learn from not so much your wins, but from the mistakes, or learn from our guests. Okay, that concludes our episode of Leadership Talks with Kun Tan from CP Vietnam. Thank you so much for sharing so many insights.
Right. Thank you very much, Kap.